Right, welcome to episode 111 or something of What If Civilization Started Over. In the last episode, we saw a couple of events happen, such as the partition of this light blue country right over here in Poland and Ingria. Wait, I'm just gonna resume it again. There you go. That's a full map without the stupid thing on the top. The other Turkish country invaded the red one down here. We saw the Italians aid their orange ally in invading Andalusia. Some countries broke away from China, and maybe some other stuff, but probably not. I don't know. Anyway, in today's episode we'll see some. Oh wait, you joined their alliance. I think you also invaded this country too. I think, probably. Anyway, more things happening in today's episode. And first off, we need to head over here to Pakistan because just like their neighbor to the west, Persia, Pakistan will finally shift over to become a fascist nation. So that's pretty bad for the world, but there you go. Fascist Pakistan. I'm also seeing this Arabian area is kind of losing lots of its democratic values. I mean, some of the countries are still maintaining them. I think I made some of these countries full democracies in the last episode, and I don't really want to go back on that immediately, but I kind of could. Anyway, Pakistan doesn't do anything special. They just turn fascist, so that's fun or something. I don't know. Speaking of these radical ideologies, though, we can head over to a country who's been recently very important, and that's the nation of, nation of Ingria. As Ingria will finally be they're going to be shifting over to their own radical ideology. There's two main ones, because there's two radical ideologies. They go authoritarian, of course. However, they managed to adopt the communist ideology. As in an election, they elected and voted a communist candidate. And they become the new dictator of this country, which isn't super popular with everyone, but lots of people do support them, and they kind of think it's a good idea for their country, and it makes them more wealthy, so that's fun. Anyway, this is all kind of culminating and affecting one country in particular, and that's the nation of Muscovy, who hasn't really done a whole lot. They've just kind of existed for a while. I don't like this border at all. I don't like the provinces here one bit. With the Polish being fascist and these guys now turning communist, and both of these countries being pretty successful, the people in this nation, who generally are more right-wing leaning, while Ingrid has seen a lot more success recently, and it's kind of turning the minds of these different people, it's just going to devolve into a civil war that consumes the entire nation. And this is kind of what it looks like. So as you can see, there's a lot of major communist groups all across the Western territory, whilst over here in the east and kind of the south, and some of the areas more affected by war, we have the fascist groups. So the nation has its own military and stuff, but lots of the military is taking up arms to fight for their own side of the war. Lots of the military join the fascist side, but there's more people who join the communist side. And especially down in this area, we see kind of like the communist headquarters. Of course, if they win the civil war, they would take over the capital city and become, just the country again, but communist. This is the headquarters. They take over this random bit up here, and fascist groups start to take over the entire northern area, which basically has no real value. But, good for them. And they push in towards this area, taking it over too. This communist one's going to link over to this territory, and now they're just kind of trying to work on towards the capital city. However, the capital is they're gonna do some pretty good work at defending itself from the communists. The government people are rich, and rich people like fascism. Well, they don't like communism, that's for sure. So these guys managed to push out to another city, and to be honest, this entire area is kind of surrounded by fascists. But over here in the east, these other smaller groups are just going to sprout out. We're going to see a couple more appear all around the border of the next country, until finally this entire area links up into a huge communist group. But this war's getting third-partied. Ingrid forces start to move in with the weakening of Muscovy as they're in a huge civil war. They manage to easily waltz in and take the capital city and the surrounding city over there. So far, they've only invaded into the actual country government, but the communists start to attack them. They're like, okay, I'm gonna invade the communists too. Yeah, they are actually getting quite a lot of communist support, and ultimately, they managed to use propaganda to put themselves up as kind of the liberators of the communist people revolting in this country. Up in the north, the fascists are having more success, and especially with the Ingrian invasion of the western area, where the communists were the most popular, the fascists do have a lot of success. So for a lot of people, they're like, you know what, this is probably good for our country, so that we don't get taken over by the fascists. So yeah, lots of people start to support this. I basically just see large parts of the country fall over to the Ingrian occupation. Kind of they start to side with the Ingrians. So it's the Ingrians versus the fascist rebels. However, the fascist rebels aren't even like the proper full country. There's also the actual national government, which is fled to somewhere over here. How the Ingrians push over to that area, and at this point, the entire nation is going to get partitioned roughly along something like this. So there you go. Over in the east, then the fascists have managed to do a pretty good job at pushing in to this territory. I use a different shade of brown because the normal fascist brown didn't really show up very well on the red country. But over here in the west, we can see the Ingrians are having a lot more success than they are having in the east. They managed to push up around a lot of these major lakes and over to here, and they get quite close to a lot of these major cities. They're finally going to push up to the White Sea, and they're going to just gain nothing from that, but that's cool. At this point, the country's military, and lots of it's kind of just the people are kind of realizing there's no hope, and finally, after they lose all the valuable territory in their country, they will surrender over to the Ingrians, who fully annex it, which is huge, because this country is richer and stronger than them. However, the fact they're in a civil war meant they just lost the war, and now Ingria is massive and strong. Moving further south, we can head to another radical ideology country, as Hejaz is starting to make another move, and this time it's against the random red country over here. The red country does have minority Hejaz groups in the northern part of its country. Actually, that wasn't very helpful. Red country religion there. As you can see, which is not minority, that's a lot of Hejaz groups in the northern part of this country. I didn't realize it was that much of that. Yeah, that's really useful. Anyway, Hejaz forces managed to push over near both of these cities, which I think are Medina ones. It's not great living there. They also capture all the other European religion people who fled to this country, which was like granting them asylum and stuff. No more of that. And it loses its capital city pretty quickly. They've been modernizing their military and buying equipment from. Who would you buy it from? Maybe the Gaziatic country? Or Morocco, maybe? And they might help you. Maybe Hejaz and Persia. They're probably good relations with Hejaz until now. Maybe Italy. I don't know. Some random other countries. Egypt's kind of strong, so we'll see. Well, we won't, but think about it or something. But Hejaz does a pretty good job at taking over their coastal area, and now there's both of these, I think, pretty old. Is this kind of the old orange country? Old major cities down here in the center, and they finally capture these ones. And after a not very long war, the Hejaz country takes out the red team, and they will be fully annexed into Hejaz. So there we go. Hejaz has expanded even more along the actual Hejaz area from real life, and they look cooler-ish. I like this border here. It's very cool and spiky. Anyway, where do you want to go now? Actually, we can head over here to South America, because something that probably won't surprise you is that Brazil. Brazil's going to fall to authoritarianism. This really isn't a surprise, to be honest. Brazil has been the most aggressive South American country. They basically started all the wars in South America. They invaded pretty much all the countries in this region. Out of any of the countries, there was a big Amazonian war, and then Brazil joined that, and then there was the smaller invasions by both of these countries and this country, like the ex-colonial territory. But that's it. So it shouldn't really be a surprise that Brazil endorses a fascist government. The people very much support this. Like out of the recent fascist and communist overthrowings of government, well, not overthrowings, takings of power in different countries, Brazil is the one where the people support the radical ideology government the most. The people really like that Brazil is now fascist. And with the new fascist dictatorship, which actually just has the president from the old republic becoming fascist, yeah, they're just going to invade this country, who isn't very strong and hasn't done a whole lot. They start to push over towards both of these major cities, and they get very close to the capital very early on in the war, so they're going to focus on getting some resources. However, it does start kind of slow, because they use more guerrilla warfare tactics, but the Brazilians do a pretty good job at kind of closing off this random rainforest region. They move along this cool straight line, and they manage to close off the border from the pig team, which means these guys can't get any more aid from those guys, so they die horrible deaths in the Amazon rainforest. Meanwhile, Brazil continues to move up, taking the major city in the south and closing off the capital city, which they're defending with a lot. And the reason why they're defending the capital city a lot is because this country is going to launch both of their nuclear bombs into Brazil. Now, a while ago, after World War IV, I mentioned how the usage of nuclear bombs was very, very taboo. Everyone was like, what the hell? We definitely shouldn't use nuclear bombs because they're awful and kill people. But the first two nuclear bombs used across all of South America are used here, as one hits this area and also this area. They can't really get too far because this country is not very strong, and they just don't have good nuclear technology to allow the countries or their bombs to have that range. But they are the first country following the end of World War IV to use nuclear bombs, and the Brazilians are like, what the hell, dude? And in a weird way, it makes a lot of countries around the world support the fascist Brazilians. But this country, they go down in history of like standing up to the fascists. And probably, maybe in the future, they'll be used as some sort of symbol of resistance. But also, that was horrific. Like, those are some really populated areas, and you just killed everyone there. So, what the hell, man? Anyway, the Brazilians invade Trinidad and Tobago. After that, the country has just spent a lot of resources doing that. I mean, the people are kind of like, what the hell? We didn't think you were going to do that. So, they kind of lose their support for the government a bit. And the country finally capitulates and collapses, with the Brazilians fully annexing it. What government were they? Okay, military dictatorship. That makes sense then. I guess I'm launching nukes. I kind of thought they were just democratic and doing something stupid, but no. Okay, good to know. Anyway, Brazil might now be a catalyst for radical ideology spreading all across South America. They definitely could be. Anyway, over the sea to Ghana. Actually, let's do something different. The Brazilians. Brazilians, yes. Power rankings. Brazilians are 9th in the world still. However, at this point, they've annexed a lot of South America, and they could definitely start to move up maybe quite a few positions. They're definitely approaching Tibet quite rapidly. But number 1, Italy. Number 2, Adriatic. Number 3, China. It's all basically the same. These aren't going to change too much very quickly, but the year is 2041 at the end of the episode. That's actually not too far away from where we are now, like 15 years. That's crazy. Anyway, speaking of China, more nations are going to be breaking away from your country. And we are going to see some more nations break away from China, as I haven't really mentioned yet. They don't all break away at once. I hope that's kind of obvious. It's like a staggered event. But yeah, let's see. First out is this dark red country, which creates some very horrific borders. But luckily, we see this lightish bluish country secede next. Okay, wrong there. So they're gone. Staying over here in the central region, we see this red country join almost entirely after the blue country, like very, very soon afterwards. And then quite a while later, so these coastal regions leave, probably towards the end of the episode, with the pink country leaving. And then finally, the last one to leave in this episode, we have this yellowish country leaving. No, it's more orange, but it's fairly yellowish. And now China is left to their most core territories, and the bits of the country that support the Chinese Union the most, and kind of like to stay with it, but lots of the people don't fully support it as much as they do. Who were in that island? I assumed it was this country. So yeah, they're definitely not the third strongest country in the world anymore. They're probably still a top 10 country. It's just they have lost like half of their nation there, so that kind of sucks. But there you go, a lot of countries back, so that's cool. I think, oh my god, it looks so different with this green country, absolutely huge now. Anyway, I was probably going to do more stuff. Actually, speaking of stuff I'm going to do, I feel like I was going to change some more ideologies. But, oh well. Anyway, I did say I was going to go across the coast to Ghana, because Ghana is once again going to be invading a country, and it's you. For like all of the thumbnails for the Ghanaian invasions into countries in this region, you've been on them, looking kind of worried. And like, oh, not this again. Yeah, now it's going to be you getting invaded. I have to get this country to look worried instead. I just moved Pax Arabia because it was kind of easier. Anyway, most of these cities of this mostly Saharan country are down here in the south, except for the capital, which is apparently right. I think that's where Bamako is, like the Mali capital. So Ghanaian forces are going to amass around this territory, and then they just start to spearhead over here. They kind of build up a defensive position and get all this stuff ready in that land, and then just move towards your capital city. And it works out pretty well. There's basically no resistance. This country does have a military. Ideologically, what are you? You're a military dictatorship, just like Ghana, so that's a shame. I kind of thought they were. So they do just throw people at the front line. I guess they're not very humanitarian. And the Ghanaians eventually push over to this. But after these are the capital city and some of these are the western regions, there's not a whole lot left to do. I don't fully know where you are, so I'm going to grab my trusty real life lair. I think you can, I mean, this is all Sahel, but you can live in the Sahel. So Ghanaian forces still have a little bit left to invade. They've kind of taken out all the really livable areas of Mali, and now they're invading into southern areas of Burkina Faso. Abuja is somewhere over here, so I guess maybe that's fine. But at this point, all the Nigeria stuff, which you can kind of live in, Burkina Faso is basically gone. And finally, the government, whose military leader has fled to the desert. Like, you know what? Let's maybe just stop fighting. I feel like the leader would probably flee, and that's something I don't really talk about. But he probably would flee to the brown country, or maybe who would accept him? Maybe Nigeria, because these guys don't really like Nigeria very much. There you go. I guess that's interesting. But as country falls, and it will be fully annexed into Ghana, who now looks absolutely huge in the African continent. As you can see, pretty massive nation. So there we go. Ghana looks pretty scary. I wonder what their future might be. Anyway, let's not worry about it. By the way, the Ingrians don't join the Communist Alliance, but they definitely could in the future. They've got really good relations with them because they're both communist. I mean, duh. Of course they're going to have good relations. Anyway, I think there was maybe some ideological stuff I was planning to do, but I don't really know. I think maybe what I wanted to do was something over here in North America, but I might leave it for the next episode, so you might just be left in suspense, which is not too bad. You know, that's kind of good for you at some points. I'm not sure. Anyway, I think I might end the episode here. It's been 16 minutes long. To be honest, I could just do something else because this is cool. Let's go over here. Let's grab, our trusty black bit around the outside, and then the red bit, because the country over here in North America, we've been turning over to communism, and it's this blue one over here. This is going to be the first non-European country to adopt the communist ideology. They see how successful it's being in some of these other European countries, and they will decide to adopt it, and they might act on that in the next episode. Not a super strong country, and definitely not a very important country, but they could be in the future. Maybe not. Also, yeah, maybe not. But there you go. Cool stuff. Thanks for watching. Have a nice rest of your day, and goodbye.